Nesma. Here. Rose.
Here.
Heil. Belcher. Anderson is excused. And Decker. Here. And yeah, and Selena. I made a notes sheet and your name slid down, so. Yes, thank you. Bye.
Perfect. All right, so in the packet on page 1 and 2 are the minutes from the March 18th, 2026 meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
I approve.
Is there a second?
Okay.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Are there any additions or deletions from the agenda? Scott does have one proposed one on here. So I would entertain a motion to add that one and any other additions.
I'll motion for the addition.
No motion for the addition, is there a second?
Yeah.
All right. All right, any further discussion?
No.
Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes for the addition of 1600 East Sheridan Street deed, which will be under new business number 5. We have our request to appear on our agenda, the Ely Investors Group. Thomas, do you want to come up and explain what you want to talk about?
Can I come up here?
Yeah, come right up here.
First off, we should explain somewhat how it's been.
That's fine.
That doesn't myself. And I sent a letter to Scott, and I think it kind of explains what we're looking at doing. I've dealt with distressed properties for over 50 years. I tell people that tells them how old I am. But when I learned the business 50-some years ago, the person who taught me foreclosures said that I'd find one of 3 things in almost every foreclosure: drugs, alcohol, and homes. And many houses I found were all clear. Also, I've had working with contractors over the last 50 years. I've had many of them that had drug and alcohol problems. So I've had a lot of experience dealing with people with issues with drugs and alcohol. And I've been a here for 5 years now. I moved up here after the pandemic because the majority of what I do is sit in government centers and read documents. And when the pandemic hit, they stopped foreclosure, stopped eviction, shut down government centers, so they pretty much put me on business. And then I said, well, I'll set up so I can work from home. I thought if I could work from home, I would go into business and all the insanity. When I go to Little Lake, I'm like, well, that's right. I went and I ended up there in 2020. And we acquired a property down on Eagle's Nest. And initially we couldn't get anybody to do any work on it because of the pandemic. And then when the pandemic was over, all of a sudden building materials and shortage of contractors went right through the roof. And shortly after that, my wife was diagnosed with cancer. So I started working with some people who had sober houses, I guess you could call them, out of Duluth, and they were bringing people over here with me. And I was extremely impressed with the way these people work. And I tell people about, tell a little story about the year before the pandemic down in cities, I did 25 homes. Never did one again, but and people say, wow, how could you do that? Well, part of it was I was working with a group of Russians. And these weren't, there was only 2 of them that were really lad, couldn't speak a word of English. He was the brains and the father and had the money, and his son-in-law Dennis spoke English. And what they were doing was they were bringing people over from Ukraine and from Russia, bringing them legally. They were sneaking them across the border or anything else. They put them into it because they were all tradespeople who wanted to be a part of the American dream. And they were bringing these people over, and they were working on houses that I sold. And sometimes Dennis would take me to these houses to show how the improvements on them. And extremely happy. And you can just tell by their actions or smiles. The Russian music, I couldn't understand what thing was being said, the Russian music and everything else. But they were really enjoying themselves, and they were employed, they had insurance and everything else. After a year and a half, they were able to qualify for a mortgage. And then they would all work together and help these guys, you know, get into a home. And 2 years later, if they wanted to flip it, they could, or if they wanted to stay in it, or that was their choices. And when I moved up here, I literally see the same thing happening with some of these people who are in the recovery programs, coming out of, who've been coming over to Duluth and working for me. I mean, the only difference is, instead of Russian music, they're playing religious music. They say prayers in the morning, they say prayers for me, they, you know, bless this house and bless this. And I was always impressed with what the Russians were doing there, because I thought, here's some people who couldn't even speak English were doing this. And I really feel that this is an opportunity to do the same thing with some of these people that have touched some people, some of the churches and things like that. Talking to this woman here with, that you're aware of, has a home in Duluth right now. I also am working with a couple of people out of Duluth because they have another home in Duluth that is actually being set up as a group home for recovering people too, because this was a huge problem for them. So we're looking at doing it here because we have a couple of properties here. And we're almost looking at doing it as a pilot program. In other words, to set it up, show how it can work, and once it's demonstrated, then duplicate in other communities on the Iron Range or in St. Louis County. That's kind of my plan, and that's the concept of what we have. Everybody that we've talked to so far has been supportive of it. We're dealing with the St. Louis County Department of Health and things like that. It just so happens the home we have right now, and I sent a picture of it. It's been a lot of the work has been other than licensed electrician and plumbers we've had to have. The majority of the remodeling and things like that have been done by these guys under our contractor's license. And we've had lots of people who've actually stopped by or drove by, you know, give us a thumbs up. Neighbors would come over and say, you know, hey, we really like what you're doing, and could you put windows in our house? And these guys who, a lot of them have, you know, I only work with men in the program, but it really gives them a great feeling because all of a sudden, you know, these guys are, some of them had problems where, you know, because of their drugs or alcohol, they, you know, they were doing some activities that were illegal. Some of them had so many tickets from driving under the influence, they literally were sentenced to some quite a bit of time in jail. And when they come out, all of a sudden, you know, they can't pass a background check for housing. I mean, I had a rental property down in Gilbert and listed it as a rental property, and I had 80 people apply for it. And obviously, I'm going to have my priorities, and these people, they don't have jobs, they didn't have jobs, they don't have can't pass a background check, they don't have a driver's license. And a lot of them, what we're finding is in that case, not a lot of them, some of them, what they do is they come out, they go through their treatment, and they just go back into the old system. And what we're hoping to do is that we can convert some of those people. That's my plan.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes. Who's paying for this, bringing these people here into work? Who is funding it?
Who's funding it? My son.
Oh, no, I mean, is it through the health system, or the state, or county?
No, right now, it's all self-funded. There are some programs out there, and we're looking at the opportunity for those types of programs, but initially, this was all our own stuff.
And all these people, are they just coming from anywhere? Do the people come from all over the United States to work here, or is it just local people?
No, these are, the people that are working here right now on that particular home are people we've been bringing them over on a weekly basis, who are in similar to what we're trying to do here over in Duluth right now.
Just from Duluth.
Yeah. So we're just bringing them over.
So you want to have those people come in and live in Ely,
into that house right there, and
and you'll have
Go into the work.
five people there?
what?
There will be 5 people living there?
There'll be, yeah, that house is, I'd have 5 bedrooms, so there could be 5 bedrooms.
And that's for people who are recovering, have recovered?
Are in recovery programs who've been through, a lot of them have been through a thing called Teen Challenge, which is, and most of them, a lot of them that I've experienced have been through a 13-month rehabilitation program that's state-based.
And then how long does each of them stay there?
It's really up to those individuals and how, what their wants, needs, desires are. I mean, some of them that are in the programs right now, some of the homes in Duluth, have been in it for a year or two, and then sometimes once they can move on.
And they pay to live there?
The ones right now that, and there's a couple different programs out there, one of them is where they pay themselves. It's partially based on how much money they can earn.
Right.
Some of them, if they have, depending upon if they have any medical needs or things like that, if they're able to be working. We're looking at the people, primarily what we're hoping to look at are the people coming out there that have trade experience, because honestly, there's a huge shortage of a lot of people.
And is there someone that lives there 24 hours that watches over them so they don't get drugs and alcohol?
Typically there's what's called a team leader, who's a person who pretty much monitors it, but he's also recovering into the program. And,
Does he live there?
Yes. And we've been monitoring ourselves also.
I have one question, and this maybe is more for Scott. Is this teeing us up for a future conditional use permit that will come through?
Okay, so what this is, in the short term, what this is laying, or what Tom is requesting, for those members that are new that don't know, anytime there's a use on our permissible uses list, which we've been talking about a little bit, right? Anytime there's a use that's not on there as being allowed in a certain zoning district, basically the process is somebody has to petition to the commission, first of all, and say, hey, I want to do this project or this use in this zoning district, in this, for example, this house. The zoning doesn't allow this use at this time. Can you look at adding it to the permissible uses list? So that's kind of where we're at with this process, so that's what Tom's request is.
Is it not in here under rooming house?
It's another rooming and something else.
Correct.
And
So the zoning district that house is in is R1.
Oh, it's R1.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, so if you flip to page
8.
8, so it's got the permissible uses. So by definition, a rooming house in our ordinance is multiple individuals in a single structure who share a common kitchen and or bathroom facility, and who lease or pay rent for the dwelling. So that also, when you look at the state statute, paying rent can also be providing goods or services or things like that. So that's, Tom is saying, if they're doing construction work, they might not be paying to rent the place per se, but they're doing work, right? So there's kind of a, when he came in, there's kind of a flaw when we read the last permissible uses. As you can see, in R2 is just flat out allowed, and then the rest is conditional. So again, what he's requesting is, within R1 zoning district, is to allow rooming houses. And again, now it's up to the commission to whether or not you allow that for conditional use permit or just flat out allow. So that in essence is why Tom is here.
So our choices are, but we would need to add this to update our permissible uses list.
So the step of the process would be, whether the commission feels comfortable making a decision on that tonight, tabling for another meeting, that would need to make a recommendation to the city council, because the permissible uses is an ordinance change, which, ordinances can only be changed by the city council. So we take a recommendation from this commission to modify this or change this in a way that would reflect what they want. Then it would have to the council
timeline on completion? When will you be done with the construction?
Probably within 60 days.
I think you and I discussed, we were looking at like potentially June.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, does anyone else have any other questions?
And so another option is we could also, since we have the permissible uses list discussion on our old business agenda, we could also discuss it further under that.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah. All right, we have one other request to appear. Frederica, would you like to come forward?
Do you want me to speak now, or do you want me to speak when you guys are discussing the shoreline excavation permit? Because that's what it's pertaining to.
I would like you to speak now.
Okay. What are we, 3 minutes? I didn't check the...
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to watch up your time. My name is Frederica Musgrave. I live at 30 West Shagawa Road in Ely, and I'm a resident. And I wanted to talk to you about the permit that you have before you for 755 Pioneer Drive. And there are two parts to this. One is, I know you're not going to listen to me because when things are done, they're done. The other part is what I'd like to do to investigate the details on that permit. So, first of all, the area on Sandy Point is a birding area, okay, and has been for the public. And there is nothing I have seen done by Planning and Zoning, Park and Rec, the steering committee, or anyone else on setting aside, protecting, and expanding natural areas, including birding. And one of the things I'd like to share with you that I have not seen, and I'd like it in the files, is Bill Tefft created this, 2015, and sites where there are birding areas for people from all over the country to see. And I've never seen it in any of the packets here, so somehow that could be included, and that includes also Miners Drive. So Sandy Point is an area where there are birders showing up and birds. And I know you're not going to do anything because there's nothing that has been followed to promote or designate areas as birding areas, and that is adjacent to that property, okay? The other is in terms of historical value. What was robbed from the Indians has been robbed from the Indians. And I don't see anything in the comprehensive plan, land use plan, anything saying we need to look at what was done, not necessarily was done to the Native Americans, because it was, the lands were robbed, but the Sandy Point, from what I've heard, is used to be an annual gathering point, a sacred point. There's nothing, obviously, in the permit regarding that. I don't know how the approval was for the lands to be sold, what have you, and to be developed the way it was. My guess is way back when the historic value was never really recognized. The other thing is that what goes on in Ely, there are certain people who have a lot of power and control a lot of property in Ely. This happens to be KK and PI LLC. Basically controlled, I've heard different things. I posted on my website the actual tax parcel. This relates to the city attorney, who also owns the upper part of Sandy Point. Okay, and as we all know, and nothing against the city attorney or any of you, what have you, don't take anything personally, but the city attorney owns a lot of property and rental property. And the city, and hopefully you will look at this not from the city attorney, but just in general what you were approving, not approving, what have you. Okay, as it say, those things you're not going to listen to me about, and I got about 20-some phone calls, emails, probably more, and people unfortunately probably did not contact you. But this is what people told me on several things. Let me see my notes here. There's, I don't know, it's a trust, what the trust says about developing on native lands that were stolen or about the environmental stuff. People have brought up the issue on the tax break by putting this private beach club in. This reduces taxes. And as far as I'm concerned, when there's someone who owns so much property in the city of Ely, it's like maybe you need to rethink the tax base. Not that you necessarily do that, but in your permit, because you're probably going to give their permit, is think about that. What do we have down here? 6. I just heard about this the other day, yesterday. I don't know when you guys heard about this. Okay. And when you look at the permit details, there are regulations on the type of sand that can be used. I'm not an expert in that. The person who read the document and knows about sand and excavation says that the sand is not designated properly, and why I want you to then table this or talk about it next month, giving everyone enough time to talk about whether it's sacred lands or the sand. So there's a type, the quality of sand is questionable. The other is the DNR regulates the depth of when sand is put in there. It's not specified in there, it's not correct. It's not meeting DNR regulations. Okay, there's a question of the use of the public parking. The DNR owns that spot, that parking spot down there, and I know there are birding groups that go there, okay? Will the city attorney, owner, whatever property, be using the public parking? The other is there's a question about the spacing for the parking, and there's apparently supposed to be like 200 feet. It's not specified in the permit if that's the one parcel or the 2 parcels that are owned, and if it's contiguous connected. So there's some questions about the documents themselves. What I want you to do is not vote on this tonight. Look at the documents, look at the details, do due diligence before you just, oh, this is easy, let's approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to make one comment. There was a few points made that this decision has already been made. We got this information the same time that everyone else did, so there was no pre-decisions made on anything related to this. All right, so reports, planning and zoning administrator.
Alright. Okay, just an update from last week. We're on the agenda at 6:31, or last month I should say. 6:31 East Camp for the snowblower rock heaving incident. Remember that? So the owner did reach out. I'm going to meet with them hopefully next week as long as the weather permits some real more snow so we can see. So if anybody has anything that they want me to bring up or has any questions, I guess you can let me know now or just send me an email over. I think it's the 21st that I was going to meet with them. So if anybody has any concerns or
Did they have a permit to do the landscaping ahead of time, or they just did it to make it look nice?
no. And we don't have, if we get inquiries, people ask for general landscaping permits. So the only areas in town that we have a landscaping permit per se would be like the shoreline area.
Okay.
So we just have to make sure that they're meeting the cubic yard requirements and then, not clear cutting, things like that. But we don't have general landscape permits, but, if we see that there's, we do have a permit for excavation in the city right away.
Okay.
So in turn, if you are doing any sort of work in the city right away, that would require a permit. Obviously, if somebody came in and said I was going to build a retaining wall or boulders in the city right away, that would be completely different.
So they didn't know that there was anything wrong until snowplow hit?
Right. What I was told is they may have inquired with city staff as far as like if they could do some mulch or something like that, and that was okay, but there was never any mention of like boulder rocks being placed there, so.
All right.
Let's see, so we, in the last week, things have kicked up. Here comes summer, yes. So, as you can tell, when I start the pack, I always literally start the packet almost after like after this meeting, right? Just kind of like putting stuff, sometimes things come up. And we actually didn't have a lot of stuff on the agenda until about a week ago. So the last week, we've just really had a lot of stuff. I just want to forewarn people that for our May meeting, which will be May 20th, we will more than likely at least have one public hearing. I don't know if there'll be conditional use or variance. I've had several different inquiries on things. And there's a potential that there could be up to even 3 hearings on that night. So it could be a very busy hearing night. I will have more details to come. For those, I will have the agenda out sooner. I apologize with this one. I've been really busy, and again, a lot of things being added. My intent is always to get the agenda out by Mondays, but that just didn't happen. So, the busy is good. Does anybody know if they're going to be gone? I'll be good. Okay. Just talking about projects, just a quick update. Again, I won't get into I don't want to overflow on the projects committee update, but a lot of these are projects that I've been involved with anyways. We have bids tomorrow for the fire station, ambulance remodel, and HRA, or not the HRA, the windows in the building. The HRA apartment complex, which is kind of an agenda item here, that's going full steam ahead. And we have a mountain bike project for trails. If those of you maybe have seen Park and Rec minutes or just heard some expansion of mountain bike trails, that'll hopefully get going soon. The dock at Miners Lake, hopefully that'll get installed this summer, and some project upgrades on that side of the lake, as well as potentially bringing over the fishing pier. I have another fishing pier on that end. Trizona Trail Invasive Species Project, so we're talking about keeping nature in mind. That area that's got invasive, so if you're looking at the Trizona Trail main parking lot, kind of to the east of that, there's some area where the grass kind of grows. A lot of invasives in there, so we actually, North St. Louis County Soil and Water reached out to us about doing an invasives project. So that'll turn into basically like a pollinator area. We were going to expand the project, but there's some land ownership questions. The county kind of owns some, and it had to be on the city-owned land. So we had to skim it down a little bit, but there's also some potential for, there's a lot of invasive tree species along that trail, which are kind of overgrowing the trail right now. So there's some potential for, again, limiting that. So it'll be a very good project in an area where a lot of people enjoy. So, yeah, and the last thing I really have, if anybody's been following the legislative session here in Minnesota, not nationwide, I had sent out some information, just kind of update on the homes bills that were kind of being drafted up. This is probably the 3rd year now that this has potentially been a topic for legislation, and it started very in-depth, and it's kind of been slowed down each year. But nothing made it out of committee, so basically it would have limited the city's authority for zoning and things like that. Would have had requirements. So they had like 3 different tiers of cities. I think they had cities under 5,000. There was different tiers of requirements. Cities over 5,000 and cities over, I think, 10,000 or more. Very stringent requirements as far as parking and things like that. And again, I think just Greater Minnesota Cities Coalition has really been pushing back against these because they want to maintain local jurisdictions with that authority, right? They know that the rural Minnesota especially is much different than the 7-county or 10-county metro area. So keeping that, not that, I think in Ely we've done a really good job of expanding our uses and being able to have, that cross between commercial and residential in our commercial zoning area. But again, that's up to an individual city. What fits or really doesn't fit for everybody. So those bills have all stalled out for now. There's always that roundabout way that they could go back again, be attached to some other bill. But again, a lot of the committees and different associations are very much against that. Again, keeping those decisions to the local government. So just, again, I don't really care what anybody's political stance is. It's just as far as zoning wise, something
Seeing none, moving on to projects committee.
Well, there's nothing really for P and Z right now, but they're gonna repaint all the crosswalks in town. The water system plant from Burnside has been upgraded because they've had some water breaks on Main, so they're gonna try and do from feral gas over to Central, because a lot of the structure is 90 years old. And then they're gonna replace some of the brick. They're gonna replace the brick with cement down by Napa, because the bricks have worn away and you can't even read whose names are on them, and it's for better. And then there was a problem on 16th and Conan with meltwater messing up somebody's driveway, but it cost like $45,000 to fix it, so they're not going to do that. They're going to wait till they can incorporate it in another project, because that's quite a bit of an investment. The HR department was underbid, so they're going to put in better equipment like doors and counters and that, so it lasts longer, as long as it was underbid. And then the Airhead development down at the old trade station, there's going to apply for a fill-in grant through the Entrepreneur Fund with the matching from the IRRB, so that's going forward. And that's about it.
Perfect. Any questions about projects going on?
Sounds good.
Lots happening. All right, so council update. I have 4 different things for you. We had passed some revisions simplifying the business park covenants that passed at planning or at council. We had brought forward changing the ordinance on Miners Drive, changing the zoning on Miners Drive from P1 to C1, and that has passed. And then we had brought up updating the permissible uses list to add dog and cat boarding, and there was one other thing in there. Cat boarding and rescue, animal rescue. And that passed as well. And then Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee had brought forward last time a request to council to do a request for proposal for vendors for the Comprehensive Plan Committee, and that was denied by council. So those are my updates. Does anyone have any questions?
Can you repeat that last one?
Yes, so Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee had brought to Planning and Zoning, right, since it's a subcommittee, and Planning and Zoning had approved a recommendation to council to give the Comprehensive Plan Committee the ability to submit a request for proposals, and that was denied. So the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee cannot seek requests for proposals for the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, it's in the minutes on page 1 in the original packet, if you want to see the actual motion.
And that's where we're at. Does anyone have any questions? All right, Comp Plan Steering Committee.
Well, we've been having a meeting with vendors, and they've given us a bunch of ideas on how to create a plan and that, and they've come up with some good ideas on what we need to do in that if we happen to do it on our own. But it was very informative, so we're still in the planning process, and that's all it.
Yeah. Any questions about the comprehensive plan? All right, moving on to new business. So first up, we have 1239 East Washington Street lot line adjustment. This is page 14 through 25 in the packet. Scott, do you want to tee it up with a little intro?
Yep, so since this lot line adjustment so I tried something new this time around with some of these, because it's not a public hearing and it's not a conditional use permit. I don't have to do the findings and facts, but I figured I would do one memo to kind of explain what's going on. So, yeah, 1229 East Washington Street is giving 4.5 feet of property to 1239 East Washington Street, just due to some encroachments that came up during that survey. There was a property sale that was gonna happen, so the shed was encroaching and some propane tanks and things like that. So the property owner was nice and said, hey, rather than having to do some other things, we'll just give you 4.5 feet. So if it was a true lot line adjustment, that's something that I could just approve administratively, because it wouldn't give anybody, take anybody any sort of square footage away. But because it's adding 4.5 feet square footage to more than that. It's adding 4.5 feet wide in property, and it's reducing somebody's property by 4.5 feet. It kind of goes in line with almost like a re-subdivision, right? So that's why it's in front of you today. So as I wrote, 1229 East Washington will be adjusted to 70.5 feet wide instead of the 75 foot wide is what it was. Minimum requirement in residential R1 zoning district is 50 feet in width, so it meets that requirement. The lot depth won't change, so again, the total square footage there is still 9,870 square feet, which is well over the required 6,000 square feet. For 1239 East Washington, it'll be enlarged to 104.5 feet, and it'll retain a lot depth of 140 feet. So again, that'll be a total of 14,630 square feet, which is again well above the 6,000 that's required for R1 zoning. Required lot depths are 120 feet in R1 zoning. Again, both those reach beyond that. So I just recommended that.
All right, does anyone want to make a motion, and then we can have further discussion to approve or deny, whatever you want your motion to be, the subdivision at 1239 East Washington Street, the lot line adjustment?
I motion to approve the lot line adjustment.
All right, is there a second? Perfect. Any further discussions?
How long did encroachment occur?
How long has it happened?
Yeah.
Scott, do you know?
15 years, 20 years?
I guess I'm.
Because there's kind of like rules, if it's been there for so long.
Presumptive, yes and no.
I mean, as long as they don't care, it doesn't bother me.
Right,
So,
right, yeah, I know, my guess is it's probably been since, things were built.
So they really probably won't do that anyway.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so it's more just, legally cleaning things up.
All right, any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes for the subdivision at 1239 East Washington Street, the lot line adjustment. All right, moving on to new business number 2, 400 South 3rd Avenue West subdivision. This is page 27 to 29 in the packet. Again, Scott, would you introduce this?
So, as I spoke earlier, this is in relation to the HRA apartment complex build. It might just be easier if I pull it up on Night Explorer just to show the larger view. So those may or may not know, the city owns this large parcel which encompasses technically the city garage, the old city garage, police impound, some space here, and then this gravel pit in the corner here. So this whole entire parcel is roughly just shy of 25 acres. So the piece of land that they're looking to carve out is right in here. Again, would encompass roughly 2.6 acres. Adjacent here is the hospital's daycare. Here. So we're subdividing this chunk of land out here to remove it from the main big parcel, right? Let's see here. So when it's removed, it'll be a completely separate parcel, so it'll have its own parcel ID. It already has its own address of 400 South 3rd Avenue West. There will be an extension of South 3rd Avenue that will come down here. It's not going to be fully plotted at this time. We're just doing the subdivision. There's potential for future plotting of this whole piece of area here at a future date. But just a lot of times when we punch in the road here, things can be off a little bit, so we didn't want to fully plot kind of a wonky, let's see here. It's not like a complete square. It's got some different angles to it. So again, as you can tell, it's not a perfect square or a rectangle, so there's different dimensions on either side here. This is how the building will sit. This will be Addison Street, and then this would be South Third Avenue over here, and this would be the property. Again, total square footage, 113,707, or roughly 2.61 acres. This area is currently zoned P1, so public zoning, and there are no requirements as far as minimum lot size or anything like that. There will obviously be setback requirements when the building is built. We have to have the land subdivided before then we can say this is where the building's going to go, right? So we're doing the plan when it comes in, then we can say where the building goes. Other than that, there is no, unlike residential zoning, there is no minimum size standard, but 2.6 acres is a nice size of land. Again, it will front the street. When it gets built, will be out here, will be a 66-foot right-of-way street.
All right. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve or deny this subdivision? And then we can have a discussion.
I'll move to remove the desired lot, SCOS. Described from northern parcel 0300500003770 to create a unique parcel needed for the housing development.
Can I clarify? So are you making a motion to approve the subdivision?
The subdivision.
Is there a second?
I second.
You second? All right. Any discussion? Yes. What's up?
Are there any garages? Underground garages or anything like that?
It will be, yes.
Good.
Yeah, the plans are, people are still, you're curious when you leave, all the way around the
Okay.
table, they are set up there, so.
All right. Any other questions about this subdivision or this project? No. All right. Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes to subdivide 400 South 3rd Avenue West. All right, moving on to new business number 3. There is a letter of information on page 30 in the packet. Scott, do you want to provide any information about this?
It was forwarded to me from Councilman Bisbee, and I think it was just a matter of information as far as I know.
Yeah, I received a response from Ms. Whitney since I replied to her concerns.
So it's just, yeah, I just want to remind the public if there's any concerns. That's why we do we do multiple, we do planning and zoning. A lot of times we do public meetings for planning and zoning, and then we have, we might have 1 or 2 meetings here, and then we have multiple meetings at council. So if people do have concerns, that's the time to address this, then we can, take those into account when the process is happening. So, yeah, we appreciate public input. So.
All right, does anyone have any comments about this matter of information? Yeah. Oh, I guess I can add a little bit of color too. I received the same message, and I informed this person that the stuff that was happening at Miners Drive, that was related to all of those business park covenant ordinance changes and the permissible use update that happened, and I informed her that she had already missed the 2 public hearings about that, and it had already been decided. So,
So it wasn't about the depot, it was about the consent decrees.
I believe so, yes.
You know, we don't know for sure. It could just be about overall development on my interest.
Yeah.
Thank you for reaching out.
Yes. Scott, could you, okay, so now we're on to new business number 4, which is the Shoreline Excavation permit. Scott, could you introduce that one?
Yeah, so we had an application which, these actually generally are submitted and looked at administratively, aren't necessarily brought to the commission. But between the applicant and I, we figured it was a good, something good to bring to the committee. We've had some in the past, and those that are new haven't had to deal with anything, but we have had some incidents happen where we've had shoreline alterations and no permit was, either a permit wasn't applied for or it wasn't done to the legality of the permit, and we've actually had to have people reconstruct their shoreline to put it back towards natural. And again, so a little bit of, for those that don't know, I know our shoreline ordinance, which is in here, is kind of vague, and we are in the process of updating that, working with the DNR to be a little more inclusive with items. But the long and short is, we are, the city of Ely is the jurisdiction for Miners Lake, because that is our waterway, it's not a DNR regulated lake. And then Shagawa Lake, above the ordinary high water mark. So for those that don't know what the ordinary high water mark is, there's a set level of the lake that is considered normal, right? The DNR's jurisdiction is from the ordinary high water mark down. Our local jurisdiction, the city, is from the original high water mark up onto the land side. So we deal with the land side of things, so any sort of shoreline. This is where sometimes we get some misconceptions where people say, well, I contacted the DNR, they said I didn't need a permit. Okay, well, if you talk to the right person, the DNR, they will say, but you have to contact your local jurisdiction and see what they require. So that was, I guess, the instance on one of the properties that we had some concerns with. So again, if you're doing, if you're putting rock or fill into the water, that's where a DNR permit would be involved. If you're putting a boathouse that is in the water, that's where the DNR would be involved. But similar to the county ordinance, ours, we focus what's on land, right? We definitely look to the DNR for direction, and then again, our ordinance, we really look at North St. Louis County, so the water district, again, is some direction for some of the technicalities with things like when we did the shoreline restoration, we reached out to them, they gave us some items to include on that. So for this is a privately owned residence, and I can pull up that. So there are 2 properties on this parcel. Again, the property, the parcel that we're looking at is the 755 North Pioneer Road. Again, it's owned by a private party. They were requesting up to 50 cubic yards of sand on the beach side, so it would actually be on this side here. Again, I'll show you the map that was attached. This is the area that we're speaking of. Again, here's their whole entire shoreline. This is the area of the that we're looking at. Approximately 50 feet
discussion on this?
I'll move that we deny it for now, because I'd like to learn more about it before I move on it.
So you're making a motion for denial.
Correct.
All right, is there a second? No second. All right, that motion fails. Is there a motion, another motion on the table?
I motion we table it.
You motion to table it. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, now we can
That's what
talk
it is.
about it. All right, any discussion?
Scott, on the sand, how much would, you know, in some areas, it washes into the lake, how would they stabilize it?
There's no, so it's a pretty flat, like it's a pretty gradual, so there really isn't anything as far as having to do with like boulders or anything like that. Actually, you can get a permit from the DNR, it's like a once or twice a lifetime permit to actually dump material into the lake. There's a certain amount. Yeah. So yeah, there's, I guess, there wouldn't be anything to restrict.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it all washes in and then they replace it and then it keeps washing in and.
Right, and there are, yeah, like I think even in the DNR language, it even talks about like this isn't just like you don't get this once a year, like this is like a once or twice in a lifetime type amount that you can put there.
Okay.
I think the big thing was to, you know, you see with like the county ordinances, you know, like if somebody's requesting to sand their whole 200 feet each, or like you've seen, you know, again, the example we had, you know, the shoreline the person had was probably, I don't know, 40 feet, you know, so they only did 40 feet of shoreline, but that was their entire shoreline, so they clear cut their whole shoreline, whereas, again, this is just roughly 25% of the area that they're looking to do work on that shore.
Any other discussion?
I have a couple notes just from when Frederica spoke earlier. At the request to appear, and I wanted to address some of those and maybe like take some time to look into them more, as you mentioned. But number one was the pamphlet that was passed out from Bill Tefft back in, no, that's okay, I was gonna say, I know one of the concerns that was brought up was about birding in the area, and I see on that pamphlet that the birding area is the public boat launch, it's not this property that is seeking the permit. So I do just want to clarify that while there may be good bird watching on the private property, it looks like the birding that's pointed out in the pamphlet that was provided is specifically a public area. So that feels like sort of two separate issues there. And then I just wanted to say, I know, Frederica, you said that there were a lot of calls and emails that you got, and I would really encourage people that have comments on this to come in person and speak publicly, because we can't really listen to our constituents unless they come and give their opinions to us directly. So I appreciate you appearing, and I would just encourage the public, if there are more concerns, that we are willing to listen and willing to come in and share their voices. So.
Can I say something real quick?
Let's continue this discussion and then we can see if we can open that up.
Okay, it's just one sentence.
We're
The
gonna
birds
continue
aren't
our
on the
discussion first.
parking lot. The birds aren't on the parking lot.
But the birding location that's in the pamphlet is in a public place versus this permit is about a private property.
And I know that if you're speaking with the homeowner, they have, when they first purchased the property, they have a lot of issues with trespassers. And since then, they did post more no trespassing notices, which seems to help, but they've even got to the point where they thought of putting an electronic gate in, just with the amount of traffic that gets, you know, people curiosity, right? Property sells, somebody does some stuff to it, people want to see it. And maybe before the property sold, people were allowed to, you know, look up for arrangement. It is kind of unique because you have to go through the whole lane and everything to get there, but those two properties are private.
private land for a long time. It used to be a seaplane base,
Used to be the old seaplane base.
privately owned.
Yeah, and it was used as a residence before this.
Correct.
It was put on the market for sale.
I have one comment. She said that I heard, we have to go on not what you heard, but on facts, to make a decision on whether we're going by just hearsay. We're going to go down a lot of rabbit holes in that, so just remember we need facts to back up what we do.
Yes. Any other discussion? I do have one point. I am not opposed to this specific permit, although I do want to point out that this is in a residential zone, and it does not appear that the future plans of this property involve a residence on this property. And for that fact, so I think that it could be nice to talk with the property owner about that, but I would like to see there be a residence on this property in the future.
Yeah, and this is, well, this could be something that leads to something else. Just remember, like this, it'd be no different than somebody owning a vacant piece of land and they want to add some each thing. Because we have, I can think of a few properties that they have a property up on the hill and they own property, where their house is, and then down below they have where they keep their dock. They might want to do some shoreline alterations now. When you bring up a point of, is there a residence on there? If there's a future request for something else, that might be something that would come up for that.
Yep. All right, any other discussion? All right, so seeing now we're going to move to a vote. I will remind everyone that what we're voting on is to table it. So an approval means that we will not make a decision tonight. A denial means that we will make a decision tonight with a future motion that someone will make. So, do you want me to say it again? Okay, so everyone understands approval equals we will talk about this and it will end up on old business next meeting. All right, so with that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. No, I nay. So we are tabling this conversation. It will come up under new old business at our May 20th meeting. All right, moving on to our addition to our agenda, new business number 5, 1600 East Sheridan Street, deed.
Again, and I guess, it's just assuming some things sometimes, and I've been involved with subdivisions. I know Kevin and Jean haven't. So for our ordinance, anything that is below 5 acres, so any sort of land separation or land adjustment that equates to less than 5 acres, needs to have the approval of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So it doesn't require a public hearing unless it's a subdivision variation, which is basically a variance. So that's why these subdivisions are coming to the commission. So this is the old chamber building, so the city-owned property at 1600 East Sheridan Street. Basically, the long and short, what happened with this was, it was kind of plotted very, let's just pull up the current plot. There was a lot of right-of-way encroachment concerns. As you can see, so part of this whole, this was all part of all this, which we know. What we didn't want is somebody to buy it, but I own the middle of Sheridan Street, right? Because that wasn't actually true. So we had resurveyed, Maryland Surveying, worked with MnDOT. MnDOT actually very recently came through and did a lot of resurvey of 169. A lot of right-of-way stuff, so there's a lot of new material for that. So what's in the packet is the new proposed cleaned up version of what somebody would get if they want their property. Again, so this is, I didn't include a little synopsis there just because this came in towards the end of the day. But basically, this is commercial C1 zoning. There are no minimum lot size requirements in C1 zoning. Setbacks are very, unless it's on a corner, which kind of is, but a new, let's say, if somebody was to build a building, there would just have to be a vision triangle, but in essence, there's zero setbacks, and nothing of this encroaches on anything at this time, so it's not an issue. But again, there's no minimum lot size requirement or anything like that, so this being roughly an acre, just over an acre, it looks like, is totally conducive to the commercial zoning district.
Thank you. Is there, I'm entertaining a motion to approve, deny, table, the 1600 East Sheridan Street subdivision.
I motion to approve the subdivision.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. No discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right. On to new business. So that's what I meant. On to old business. I was reading the wrong word. On to old business A, our permissible uses list, which is 43 through 51 in our packet. And I will remind everyone that during our request to appear, there was someone who came forward with a request to update our permissible uses list. So with that, Scott, do you want to tee anything up, or should we just move to a discussion?
Yeah, I just want to point out again, I think we've spoken about this list as we go through it, change what we want to change. 2 weeks later, we can look at it and go, oh, I don't know, this doesn't seem right? Because we know that we spent, kind of like the comp plan, right? This was even before I started, there was, I think, like 4 years, in a duration of 4 years spent on, in one meeting, they'd go through 10 lines, right? And you'd be like, oh, what the fine tooth comb. So one thing we've learned over the years, and why we kind of made it a point of just kind of do an overview every year is because we know things change, right? Or sometimes we miss things. So as you know, we've had some updates to the permissible use list over the years, like as recently as last year, making the RV park and resorts and things like that, everything kind of lined together. Recently with the dog boarding and animal rescues, again, we didn't have animals, again, another example, we didn't have animal rescues on the permissible uses list. So again, I know for those that were around during the process, we clarified that if we have, if somebody comes to the city with a proposal and we say we don't even have that on our permissible uses list, which in essence means it's not allowed, right? They can petition to get it added to the list, which is what, we have a category on the list, but in essence what Tom is saying is, I want to do this on R1 zoning, right? So that's the process that we go through to get those added to the list. And again, as times change, new uses kind of arise, and we can't always keep up with the times, so somebody might present something that we didn't have on it, right? So I'll just speak on relating to the rooming houses specifically right now. Again, I think when we originally looked at this list, I think there was kind of an oversight where, and I don't have the old one, but where we didn't, we flat out allowed it in R2, but we don't allow it in R1, and then the other zoning districts that we allow it by conditional use permit only is RT, C1, C2, and SM. So again, to me that makes no logical sense. You would either make it as a CUP, or you would reverse it and have it allowed in C1 or C2 commercial, right? And again, it's just one of those items. So I don't know if anybody has any strong opinions on addressing that one singularly, or
Does anyone feel like making a motion?
I can make a motion, but I'm trying to remember in the past, Scott, or maybe you can remember, there was something about adjustments that we make to this conditional uses list going to council and like grouping them together? Can you just remind us
Yes,
about that?
so what we try to do, right, when we do ordinance, we try not to, like, every meeting come up with ordinance changes, right? Because it's a process, public hearings, council meetings, things like that. In essence, if we could, if we had other changes to this list that we wanted to do, doing it all as a whole would be easier, because then it's just, it's, meeting here, and then it's the one public hearing, versus if we want to approve one, and then 2 months later we say, oh, we want to change this and this on this one, and then 2 months later, and then it's multiple meetings, it's multiple hearings. Again, if there's, it also depends on if there's a proposed project, or there's a specific need to change one of them, that can occur as well. If that answers your question.
I have one thing, for apartments, 5 or more units isn't allowed in R1, but it's allowed in R2. So a rooming house that has more than 5 units should follow the same pattern.
Yeah, that's one.
So that would be, consistency.
Again, just a reminder, a rooming house, by definition, it's one building with up to 5 units, and then shared a common kitchen. So it's kind of like almost like a dorm, but that's even under state statutory definition, that's what that is. So it's not 5 individual units, it would be 1 unit.
But then usually the apartment houses is 1 unit with 5 apartments in it, so we need some consistency.
So should this be a conditional use?
That's a good question.
I mean, I would make a motion to make rooming house a conditional use by approved permit for R1.
All right, is there a second? All right. Any discussion?
I mean, I think the only discussion is, does it make sense to also make a conditional use for dwelling, multiple family, and apartment 5 or more units, which I don't think we have to do tonight, but that's just something that's maybe worth
I
discussing.
think in his letter too, he mentioned something about lodging and rooming. He used both terms.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, but if you see the statute, it talks about lodging.
Yeah.
You have something? I would like to propose an amendment to your motion. And hear me out, there's gonna be a lot here. So to apartment 5 plus, and this, I just looked at the list, and this is just to be a little bit more consistent across the board. So apartment 5 plus, making R1 a conditional use permit. The ambulance garage and office, making it conditional use in C2 and R1. Bed and breakfast, making R1 conditional. Under dwelling multiple, making R1 conditional. And sticking with your rooming house, R1 conditional.
Did you say that last one was dwelling?
Multiple.
I don't second that.
Okay, so let's go back to this one by one. So apartment,
5.
5 or more, you want to do CUP.
Yep, conditional.
Yep. Next one up was ambulance, right?
Yep.
And you want to add CUP under that.
Under R1 and under C2. I was just looking for quick inconsistencies.
What was the next one?
Bed and breakfast, R1 conditional. Under dwelling multiple, conditional under R1. And sticking with the rooming house, R1 conditional.
You should say to change it.
I made a motion without all the extra ones, and you made a motion to amend.
Well, I didn't make a motion to amend it. I'm requesting that you amend. And that your first and the second have to agree to make that happen. So I am requesting you amend.
So you want to make rooming as,
I will amend my motion to include all of the conditional use adjustments that Emily suggested. But it needs to be
Seconded. Were you the second before?
I wasn't.
Yes.
All right, so this is up to you now. You can decide if you want to go with what I said or not.
I will defer to your experience, so I will second it.
All right, any further discussion? And I can just explain maybe a little bit further why. I just quickly looked through the packet at the ones where we had stuff in R1 and not, or in R2 but not R1. And then I figured that we could make those all conditional. And then I happened to also catch that ambulance garage didn't have it in the C2. So that is where that came about.
But bed and breakfast one, you had 0, 0, or that's right. So you can make this okay.
Yep.
Forget
The zero means
I would, yeah.
Yeah, zero.
there's an additional step to the process.
All right. I suppose at this time there could also be, if anyone sees anything else inconsistent in here relatively quickly, this could be a time that we could amend it further.
We've included this in the packet for the last, I think, couple meetings. I think we've asked people to look at it. I haven't, over the last year and a half, there hasn't been anything else that's come up that's been an issue, other than the ones that we've already fixed.
Does everyone, maybe we should take
150.
let's take 2 minutes and skim through it, and if there's any other amendments people want to make, this could be a lovely time to make them.
Do you want to just go through it one by one?
If we go through it one by one, I promise it will take us 7 meetings. So I would say call out ones that you see.
So community center is only P1, P2. We currently have a community center in C1, which is a non-conformity, which is before the zoning code, I'm sure.
So we're going to talk about communities.
Is that on the radar?
Are you talking about the senior center?
So the community center?
Yeah. They just
Yeah.
changed.
Yes.
They just changed the
Yes, the
name.
former senior center, which is now the community center.
But it's still a senior center?
This is all my old friends.
Or did they, is it actually still a senior center?
They changed their sign, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
No, well,
What do you go to play bingo?
yeah, that's the name of it, but is it still a senior center? I mean, did they change the?
I don't know if they changed their nonprofit status.
They
If
did not.
changed their name. They did not. So they technically are still considered the senior center.
Yeah.
But then now.
I don't think we have senior center. Senior center is the same concept as the community center.
One more that I see in here is under baked goods, manufacturing and sales. We like specifically call it manufacturing and sales, but don't allow it in the manufacturing zoning.
Okay.
So that's one that we could potentially think about amending in there.
Or is that how big?
Baked goods.
Goods,
Under-
adding
Yeah, under B, thank you. They all start from back and go forward.
Scott, what does the I represent? It's only under temporary cannabis events?
Interim use. So that,
Just out of curiosity.
okay, so,
Oh, no, it's under festival.
yeah, a word of, okay, maybe we should backtrack for a second. Because when we discussed doing the whole permissible uses, then there was talk of actually defining a lot of these, which is a whole other project, right? Because my intent, so because we did this event license recently, we kind of removed the need of the interim use permit under the events, unless it's for 408, which never really occurred, right? And the events are being handled more with an administrative permit, and going to council if need be. And what I would kind of want to see is a lot of, like, modeling a lot of other cities that use interim use permits for other things, such as building projects. One thing that we do allow people to do is if they're building a house, for example, if they have sewer, water, and electrical hookup ready to go, we do allow them to stay like in a camper temporarily while they build the house. We don't really have a lot in our ordinance that outlines that, and that was like something I wanted to add as an interim use, so that way, like, if they just continue to live in their camper and they don't build a house, we can be like, oh, here's your permit gone. I had a whole other list of other things, like a handful of things to add as interim uses. So maybe we do just want to consider either the request, if it was a request, right? And look at the other things, or just table all.
I still feel good about going forward with my motion as it stands.
What are your thoughts on the other
I
two things?
could amend it to include baked goods, permit allowed in manufacturing zones, and I don't remember what the other one was.
Community center.
What sort of a change to
Maybe conditional C1, C2? RT. I think conditional C1, C2.
Okay. Then my final amendment to my motion will include also conditional use permits for the community center at C1 and C2 zones, and permit in district and for baked goods.
I just have one comment. This has to be approved by the council, right?
Yes.
So we don't want to put too much on the platter, because last time we did the whole list, and that's a lot for the council to go through.
I know, that's my only,
You know,
because what I don't want to have happen is 4 months from now and say, oh, well, by the way, then we have these interim uses that we want to add to this, right? We ended up doing a study session with the council at the time, and we did like completely overhaul this. And I just wondered if, because like data centers comes to mind, we don't have that on our list. I don't see that ever happening immediately, we don't have the infrastructure. But I have another list on my desktop that has like proposed changes we were talking about. So again, that's, to me, we either narrow it to the request, and then we can work on the other ones and better figure out if we are going to get definitions and do that all at the same time, or
We could also potentially say that maybe like potentially amend a motion one more time to bring this forward to the June 2nd meeting. So we could make this motion, that would still give us one more meeting to bring the interim use stuff forward, so then 2 things would go to council at once.
or we can just table it on one and not put a timeline on it.
But it's like I also wanted it done in 60 days. But I see these are ones that I think are very reasonable changes. I am personally for just doing these ones and then we can come up with the interim use in a few ones? I'll defer to Anna.
Well, I think we've already, it seems like we have a motion minus the baked goods and community center to get those conditional use permits done for the sort of residential
The ones that kind of fall.
classifications. So I say we move forward with that motion and we table interim baked goods, community center, and potentially some other changes.
So any other updates, we'll just keep on.
All right.
And that motion was already approved.
That was
Well,
approved.
it was,
It was not.
We have
when
the-
the motion was made, it was second, so this
We
was
haven't
just-
voted on it
This
yet.
is just discussion. So the easiest way as far as
Would it be
trying
helpful
to
for me to restate the entirety, or is everyone tracking what's happening?
We're fine.
I'll restate it before we vote.
That's the restate it.
Well, I'll restate it
Yeah.
before we vote where we're at. Does anyone have any further discussion other than clarity? No. All right, so clarity, Anna's motion is to update ambulance garage and office to R1 conditional, C2 conditional, apartment 5 or more, R1 conditional, update bed and breakfast to R1 conditional, update dwelling, multiple family to R1 conditional, and to update rooming house to R1 conditional. That is the motion with a second on the table. So with no more discussion, we can move to a vote. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes of the members present. All right, moving on to our last agenda item, old business B, outdoor wood boiler ordinance. Scott, do you have anything to present?
No update.
All right, any discussion from the commission? Seeing none, we've hit the end of our agenda and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. So, yeah. We have a home occupation permit
Oh.
in town, so there's a thing where it's like not disruptive.